then the third piece is on the selling piece of it, right? And so if the feedback you're getting, if we look at data, right, if you're priced appropriately, if you're priced where we recommend you to be priced at, you're automatically going to lose 2 out of every 10 estimates just due to price. Right? That's just the data and the stats. And if you're not, you should probably increase your prices.
When your leads are low and your sales are slow, who you gonna call? Brushbuster.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Brush Busters on the Painter Growth Podcast. Stoked to be here. My name is Jesse. We got Coach Gavin with us as well. No Mike today, so we're going to be able to have some fun, answer some questions today, and let's see what happens. You ready, Gav?
Absolutely. Let's fire away.
All right, let's get going. So the first one is solo painter struggling with price objections. So, hey, Brush Busters team, I'm a solo painter trying to grow my business, but I keep hitting a roadblock with pricing. Every time I present a quote, even for something as small as a $1,000 job, the clients always seem to think it's too expensive. It feels like no matter what I do, they expect cheaper rates, and it's starting to get discouraging. How can I get through this and convince my clients that my pricing is fair? And that is from Chad from Ontario. Okay. You want to start with this?
This is such a common challenge. And it's so interesting because my last business, like we went into this business being like, like people just aren't going to pay this for window washing. People aren't going to pay this for gutter cleaning. And then we just kept raising our prices anyways. And then our closing rate kind of dropped, and then we just got better at targeting. And then we got so expensive, we tapped into a whole other tier of society where it's like they don't even consider the lowest prices because they know that's going to be the highest risk of becoming a pain in the ass. And they value their time so much, they're willing to pay what we dubbed as reassuringly expensive prices. Like we're so expensive, like they gotta be that expensive for a reason.
Was your tagline? We might not be the best, but we are for sure the most expensive.
We're surely expensive. Yeah, I mean, I say that to point out that it was a shift in our targeting that allowed us to do that. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like building a brand reputation, operating at the premium brand level, providing so much value, and communicating so much value before we even show up to do a quote, right? But then also just like, who are you targeting for your clients, right? Like just because you got a job in a neighborhood doesn't mean it might be an indicator that's a good neighborhood to market for sure. But it doesn't mean that's a neighborhood you need to sink a ton of time and money and whatnot into marketing, because you could be getting those referrals, so that word of mouth from other super cheap clients because their super cheap neighbor thought they knew they got a smoking deal. Now they're referring you to other people with a similar mindset, and all they care about is price. So you might have tapped into the wrong market. And you might be getting a bunch of leads from it, which is, surface level, great. But in reality, like those are not the types of clients you want to be dealing with, particularly as you grow and scale. They're in fact the types of clients you want to avoid as much as possible.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on the first piece here, which when I started my most recent company back in 2021, I just went in and just decided that I was only going to paint jobs that we really wanted to paint. And for us, they were really large homes that were hardy board homes, and they had wood trim, they had a nice car, and they had a nice yard. And like those signals to me represented that people had disposable income that they were willing to spend on maintaining their house, like the nice yard and the nice car, like they have that disposable income. And virtually, like it just focused our marketing efforts where we could have targeted when I was looking at the data, like before I started the company, there was like 642,000 homes or something like that in like the lower mainland where we were. And I found 15 neighborhoods that made up about 5,000 homes. And we never even went outside of that. So I just stayed so targeted in the ideal spots that we want to go. So that I would say is like the first piece. The other one too, to just quickly check your pricing. I think a really easy way to check your pricing is just what is your paint and material cost, right? So if your paint and material costs are running you, they should run you around 10%, give or take. That's a pretty good rule, right? So if your paint and material costs are at 5% on average, like across jobs, then you might actually be quoting pretty high, right? But if your paint and material costs are running at 20%, you're actually probably quoting low. So that's just like if I was going to go into someone's company and check their pricing, I would just look at job cost cards and look at their paint costs, because that's the thing that is quite controllable. So check and see, are your prices actually within that realm, to make sure that you can actually make at least 50% margins on your job, right? If you're 10% on paint and then paying out 40%, including the burden rate on labor, then you should be able to make 50% or more on your jobs. And then so the targeted spots, that's number one, right? Choose the clients and the jobs you really want to do. 2, make sure your pricing is in alignment with what is fair, right? Make sure that you're actually not charging too much and it's actually a fair rate for what you want to do. And then the third piece is on the selling piece of it, right? And so if the feedback you're getting, if we look at data, right, if you're priced appropriately, if you're priced where we recommend you to be priced at, you're automatically going to lose 2 out of every 10 estimates just due to price, right? That's just the data and the stats. And if you're not, you should probably increase your prices. So if it's more than that, right, if it's happening, if you actually have the data and it's happening every job, like you're saying in this letter, then yeah, there's an issue, and it's mainly on the things that we're talking about here, which is the targeted pricing, and then the third piece is the selling piece. And you basically positioning yourself and selling it as a commodity versus a value add and an experience, right? And selling based on value, right? And that's the reason why, if you're running a model, and a lot of companies are doing this now, where you have the brand, where you're basically a marketing and sales company or a recruiting company. We just happen to be painting, right? And then you have either painters or you have subcontractors. And subcontractors, if they go direct to the consumer, they're just bidding on price all day, because that's the game that they know how to play. But the game that is way more fun to play is selling based on value, right? And what is value, like what is valuable to me, is going to be different than what's valuable to you, Gavin, right? But knowing that and going through your estimating process and discovery process to uncover what is truly important to somebody. Because if you don't know what's truly important to somebody and you're just talking, you're running the same script every time you show up to an estimate, yeah, ultimately people are just going to come down to price. So a couple like key questions that I always ask is, other than I always say fair price, other than a fair price and a great quality job, what else is most important to you when hiring a painting company? And the reason why I say that is because if I just say what's really important to you when hiring a painting company, what do people say every time?
Oh, I want a good price and a good job.
That's right. So it's like we've done this a few times, right?
Yeah.
So I just take that out, right? I just literally say like, hey, other than a fair price and a good quality job, what else would be most important to you? And I'm always looking and listening for things like communication, right? Or timeliness, or cleanliness, right? Or attention to detail, like these very specific nuanced things that the customers will say. And then let's say that, based on hearing about their past experience with contractors, that obviously cleanliness was a big thing. When we're doing the walk around, I'm going to ask them, like, where do we put our crew kit and our ladders at the end of the day? Because at the end of each day, we do a full clean, upon completion of the day, and then a full clean upon completion of the job. So I'll just hammer that specific point. And that's how you can start to sell based on value and not just the price. Another thing too is when, like you said, customers don't always want the lowest price and whatnot. What they want is not the best paint job, the best experience. And so what does that mean? And that means different things to different people. And that's why the estimation process I look at it, now the further along I've gotten in my career and whatnot, it's not even so much about selling them. It's like genuinely, I need to know what you guys expect to deliver the best quality experience for you guys. And if I don't get this information from you during the estimate, it's going to be impossible for me to deliver on that, right? And if you have that reference or frame when you go do an estimate, is like, I actually need to learn how to deliver the best experience for this customer, then you'll actually then already sell based on that experience. And then the bonus thing that'll happen from this is you start delivering those amazing experiences, and that becomes the embodiment of your brand, right? And that's what people talk about, because at the end of the day, they're not going to remember, for most part, a month or two goes by. Do you remember the painter that you used? No, you don't remember at all. But do you remember that they remembered your kid's name and asked about their soccer practice?
Totally. Yeah, the dog's name.
Right.
How did that? Oh, hey, you had a big, or your daughter had a big, recital last time I was here. Like, how did that go? Right.
Yeah. And then when people are talking with their friends, what do they talk about? Are they going to talk, specifically about, the paint job? They might say, hey, I got my house painted, right? And the person that I was working with, guess what they did? It's those little stories that they're going to share that are going to that's what gets your name around, and people actually talk. Because if most people will not, if you ever give them a horrible experience, they'll usually talk about that. And if you give them like an okay experience, it's like they'll be fine with it, but they're not going to talk about it with their friends or their family, and they're not going to use you again, right? But if you delivered an exceptional experience, they'll use you again, and they're going to talk about you and share your word around. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the average homeowner, like they're in a totally different world from us. Like we're obsessed with like, are the cut lines straight? Is the preparation, is it perfect? Like the average homeowner, like, other than like a cursory check, for the most part, there's some people who go a little above and beyond, is like, yeah, quality looks good. They don't know the difference. But what they do know is, did you show up on time? Did you leave a bunch of paint chips on the door, on the ground that the dog ate and they had to take to the, to the vet? Doesn't matter how straight the cut lines are. Like, like that's a terrible experience. If you're showing up 10 minutes late every single day, or you got the wrong paint, right? Or wrong color or something like that. Like, doesn't matter how good you put it on the wall. That customer experience is being ruined, right? And it's such more of an important focus. And that starts at like the estimating process. The last thing I would add is like, obviously there's a lot of information. Like you're not going to do all of this overnight. Like you need a sales process, you need branding, you need a reputation, and sales skills, right? Just focus on getting better. Attack one part of it. Okay, is it my targeting? Is it the neighborhoods I'm targeting? Let's do some research. Let's use some data tools. Okay, no, I'm in the right neighborhoods. Okay, great. Is it me? Is it my process? Let's look at that now, right? Just like take it one by one, because some of this stuff takes a while. Like building a premium brand where like optically, like people know they're about to spend way more. Like choosing you, like Apple is a premium brand. You walk into an Apple store and the people know they're going to be spending way more for probably an inferior product. I'm going to piss off a lot of Apple folks here, but like arguably an inferior product to what like PCs have for like compared to a MacBook. But people shell out twice the price because of how it feels in that store.
Dude, I just spent like $3,000 on my new MacBook. Don't make me feel bad about it.
You're killing me. You're killing me. But like you get the point,
I can't.
right?
I'm on Zoom and I make these gestures and then balloons go off and like
little thumbs.
Yeah, thumbs go off.
I
still haven't figured out how to adjust the setting, and it's quite funny on our group calls. But yeah, it's interesting how this conversation does come back around to experience, because I think that at the root of that too is, which game are you playing? Are you playing the short game here, like you just want to make a buck, or are you actually building a business and want to build play the long-term game, right? And if you think about it from a long-term perspective of the business and the person that you're becoming, is even whether it's a $500 job or $1,000 job or it's a $50,000 job, how do you absolutely deliver an experience, right? And I think that even if you're early days, right, and you're like just getting going and trying to get momentum going, as you land those first few jobs, just doing an exceptional job, and then like a cherry on the top, like what is one thing that you could do at the end of the job that people will absolutely remember? Like what will be your shtick? This is something that I totally, knowing everything I know now, I would do this right off the hop. I would come up with some sort of shtick. Do you have any ideas on that? You know what I mean by that? Like just come up with like at the end of each job, we always give them like a fruit basket, or you know what I mean, something like that. Where it's
yeah.
just
So the specific thing we had in Shackshine, my cleaning business, is we started doing this the last couple of years that I owned it. I wish we'd started it sooner. We had our shining moments, and this was actually like created to promote a lot of pride in amongst is actually internal team play to like, we wanted to ramp up the amount of pride our team took and to like build a performance culture. That's a whole different conversation, but it turned into like these awesome little points and value points for clients of like, because our model was like, you don't need to be there. Like most of the work's outside. So like we would go there, lead technician would follow the process. At the end of the job, they text the client, send pictures like, hey, here's your pressure wash. Here's the before and afters. So they can see like instantly it looks great. And then, by the way, we also did this little thing and then sent a picture of like the basketball hoop or the pool diving, the slide got cleaned, or the patio furniture. It took our guys 5 minutes. For the client, it's like, great. It's spring cleaning season. They're clearly getting their house ready for, patio season and stuff. And like, why would we go to this house and wash everything? The client's spending $3,000, $4,000 to wash their house top to bottom. And then the patio furniture is filthy, right? Like what a miss in terms of customer experience. Although it's like the client's not expecting us to do it, right? There's no expectation. But like now that they don't have to go out there, like think of our client to do that. Pull out a bucket, get some soap in it, like, get some rubber gloves, right? Like now, again, we're talking like premium clients, like $3 to $7 million homes was our target client, right? Get on their hands and knees, scrub this friggin' patio.
By the way, your company was in Vancouver, for context.
Yeah.
those $3 to $7 million homes are not what you envision.
The average, 4,000 square foot house. Yeah. But like for them, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It would take them probably an hour plus, right?
Totally.
For us, it took 5 minutes because we were there. So it was a big deal for them and not a big deal for us.
Well, it's interesting too, because the people living in those homes, if you think about their jobs or their hourly, right, they're probably making, I don't know, $300 to $600 an hour.
Yeah.
So that, that 5 minutes for you guys, just, they're going to think about it in terms of that context, or the time that they get to spend with
$300 of value. Yeah.
Yeah. It's huge, right?
Totally.
The story just popped into my head. Actually, I had I hired this girl in 2015. She ended up working for me for over 3 years. Shoni, I think you know her. But she was in like the musical and arts theater, right? And she was an amazing opera singer. It's in 2015. So when she would be painting houses, she would just love to sing, right? And she has a beautiful voice. So I forgot about this, but I started having all the neighbors, every time I go do an estimate, they would say, "Do we get the singing crew?"
That's hilarious.
And then and literally people, I remember like when people would start to like ask about that, they literally were willing to like pay me anything if they got the singing crew on site. I forgot about that. Like that is so funny. I like these little things.
But
all right,
it is the little things for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, I think Chad, hopefully you got a few things. We appreciate that question. That definitely went in a different direction than I thought it was going to go. That was really fun.
It's a fantastic question. It is an ongoing battle because you always want to be charging as much as possible and do it as little work as possible. Realistically, that's how you run like a profitable business and not just give yourself a painting job. So
100%.
Continue the good fight there, brother. I can take this one. So we've got a letter from Lewis. So, hey, Brush Busters, I've been doing some outreach on Instagram, connecting with realtors and interior designers for partnerships. Love that. Many have responded positively and said they'd recommend me, but I'm struggling to keep the conversation going. When I follow up, my second messages often go unanswered. Should I just thank them for their response and wait a while before following up again? or would it be better to ask for a call or send them some relevant information about my services? I'd love to hear your recommendations.
You want to
Great
start?
question. Yeah.
It's a great question.
So strategic partners, this is what we call the strategic partners, building relationships with key people or businesses that can refer you work. You don't want to just go straight for the kill of be like, can you just refer me work? Right? It's sell to the next step. In this case, like,
what would be a good opener? What's an example of a good opener?
So yeah, great question. So I would take the approach of like, hey, Mr. Realtor, I'm Gavin. I own Painter Growth Painting Company. I'm really trying to grow some relationships in my area, and I'm just curious. Like, do you have a few minutes where I can ask you some questions? I'm just looking to discover like how I could provide some value to realtors like yourself.
Nice.
Right. So you're going like asking, it's just like, hey, can you help me with something? And you're like doing research, right? Because that does two things. First of all, people who have no interest in putting any effort into anything other than themselves won't answer. Great. Done. Those are the people that you want to deal with. The people who are like, yeah, I want to help this guy. He's a hustler. He's reaching out. And it's amazing what you get when you ask for it, by the way. They'll be like, sure. And because you phrase it as, hey, can I pick your brain and ask you a few questions? You're implying that it's going to be a quick phone call. I mean, you could clarify that. Like, hey, could I just take 2 minutes of your time on the phone?
And adding value, because you said the second part of that
and
was
you're adding value.
To add value, which is huge.
Yeah. And then the whole idea is then you get on the question, ask them the questions. So like, what are your pain points? Like, do you hire painters? You're not going like, hey, I'm Gavin from this painting company. Like, we do awesome work. I swear, like, we're the best painters and we can provide the best value. We do the best job. Like, no.
And please refer me all the time to all your clients.
Yeah. Like, they probably get like people like same with property managers. They get these messages like all day, every day, right? You need to separate yourselves. You just be like, so I'm just curious, Jesse. Like, I really want to build relationships with people like yourself. I'm just curious. So like what are some of the pain points that someone like myself, or like a contractor, painter, like what are some of your pain points you see on a regular basis that we could potentially solve? Right. And then you listen. You don't have a canned answer. They're like, well, we used to refer work to a painter all the time, but then he became very unreliable and it hurt my reputation. Boom. Okay. That's useful information and I can use that. Like, okay, so it sounds like you're protecting your reputation is super important. And it sounds like reliability was the biggest issue. Like if you could find someone who's super reliable and prioritizes your clients and has systems in place to make sure that the job gets done, like, is that someone that you would potentially work with? Yeah, it would. That would be awesome. Cool. Awesome. Now you know how to sell to these people, right? Doesn't need to be on that call. You can be like, can I just continue asking probing questions? And it was like, you know what? I feel like I could really help you. This is very, very useful for me. And this is really what we specialize. We specialize in providing like a dialed customer experience, right? Doesn't matter if it's our clients or your clients, our reputation's on the line. Are you open to grabbing a coffee? I know your office is in, the Greenview area. You've done your due diligence. I know your office is in the Greenview area. Can I meet you at the Starbucks on the corner there, say tomorrow or Saturday morning? Like I'd love to just buy you a coffee and see how we could actually help each other here.
Yeah,
that's how you approach these conversations.
There's so much in what you just said, and there's so much to unpack there. Let's unpack it a little bit and break it down. So, the first and foremost is, like you said, identifying potential realtors, right? Which is who are the people that are in your area, and you can create a list, right? Because you want to be in a different mode when you're actually deploying this, right? There's like a research mode, and then there's like an execution mode. So the first thing that I would do is identify, let's say 20 realtors that you're going to reach out to and get the list and capture all that information. Like you're saying, where they're at, what they specialize in. But the reason why it's important what they specialize in. So when you reach out to them, you can say, hey, I see you specialize in luxury real estate, right? The people are going to know that you've actually done the research. Then once you have that list, then you start to send out those messages, which you articulated beautifully on there, which is, introducing yourself, right? Just wondering how I can help and add value to you, right? So that's the second piece, add value to it. Then when they respond to that, asking for a quick call, and then you get really curious once you get on that call, and just make it a quick call. It's not a big commitment, right? Because if it doesn't work out for them, it's not like they wasted a 30-minute coffee meeting.
Totally.
Just quick. Hey, just would love to get to know you, see how we can add value. Then the next step there that I want to call out that you said is you get super curious, just like you would during an estimate. Like we just went over this, right? It's the same process, which is what is really important to you and what were your previous experiences? Because you're going to then just take all that information and turn it around and say, well, that's actually what we're best at, right? And that's exactly what you did beautifully there. And then going for the coffee, because as soon as somebody meets you face to face, it becomes real, and like you become like a real human, right? And you make it so easy for them, like no friction, right? I know you're in that area. I'll buy you the coffee. Like, please, I hope if you have these relationships, like buy the people coffee, like
Damn coffee.
buy the damn coffee, please. And then once you have that, you're gonna actually have that relationship. And these type of relationships, this conversation that we're having now, like it might not be the first, realtor that or property manager that lands and whatnot, but the act of doing this and like if you just deploy like the law of averages, this is like hundreds of thousands of dollars conversation right now, right? Because if you just get a couple, right? If you have your list of 20 and you build really great relationships with 5 of them that send you leads, right, consistently on a consistent basis, like you're adding hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, to your business.
Totally.
So
I mean, let's say 5 realtors times an average job size of $4,000.
Yeah.
To send you 5 leads a year. That's all you need from each one. That's $100,000.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a year, right? A lot of them will start sending like 1 a week, 2 a week, that type of deal. And the last thing I just want to touch on the letter too is when I think it was Lewis said that, do I just say, oh, thanks, thanks for the connection and do that? That's kind of like going door to door and giving someone a flyer. Like, when you do that and go to door, what we say is like, you never show your flyer until you absolutely get 4 no's. And then you do hand it over at that point. Doing what they mentioned in the beginning of that letter, which is, do I just say, hey, thanks for connecting and wait for them to reach out to me? If you're going to do that, like, don't even bother doing the strategy, right? It's just a waste of time, right? You're not going to yield any results from it. But if you follow the process that Gavin just outlined here, it can be one of the most lucrative moves that you can do in your business.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I want to stress on this because I say this all the time. When we think of strategic partners, if I ask anyone, who are some strategic partners? What types of people you can reach out to? Everyone's first instinct, what comes to mind, Jesse? What groups of people? Realtors, property managers.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks of these people. So they probably get these calls and these emails constantly. Like property management firms literally have people as their job to keep you away from the property manager. They're called gatekeepers. Like if you go to their office, they're the secretary, right? Their whole job in existence is to keep people like us away from the property managers. So they can do so it's like absolutely useful people to reach out to, but there are in my opinion, other low-hanging fruit and groups of people who can benefit you faster, such as complementary trades businesses, right? Like think through of who's already, like get very clear on who your target client is, and then extrapolate from that, who else is working for these clients, who's already in their home. So for example, Shack Shine, we did 70 jobs a week, at times 50 to 70 jobs a week. A small portion of our clients, after we pressure washed their house, realized they needed painting. At one point, I was giving a lot of those leads to you, Jesse, and I realized, what am I doing? I know how to run a painting company. I literally, Shack Shine started gave us so many painting leads that I started a painting company to service those leads from one business. And we effortlessly did several $100,000 our first year, primarily from leads from Shack Shine.
I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing so hard because a lot of people wouldn't know this, that we, during that stretch, it was like, I had this great funnel from Gavin's business into my business. And then,
I cut him off.
And then Gavin and I all of a sudden became competitors, and which is hilarious. And then, full circle, we ended up doing, more business, and now we're, both coaches at Painter Growth, and we both have moved on from that, but hilarious story, backstory. And I think that's cool for people too. Like, even when my early painting company, I had this other guy that was in the same area as me, right? We're like arch nemesis. And then like 3 years later, we were like roommates. So I think it's so funny. And then now, just living in a state of abundance where you realize that when you have, even if you have good people in there, like what I started to realize too, is like the more houses you guys painted, the more business we actually started to get, because more people started painting overall in those areas. And just live in that state of abundance. So, all right, man, let's keep rocking and rolling here. So let's do this one, talking about letting go of an underperforming painter. So, hi, Brush Busters. I'm not great with difficult conversations. I need advice on letting go of a painter who isn't delivering anymore. He's been with me for over 4 years, and while I appreciate his time with us, his performance has declined, and it's affecting the team. What's the best way to approach this conversation? I want to handle it professionally, but also with respect for the time that we've worked together. Thank you for your help. James from Alabama. Okay. That's also a lot to unpack on that one. First and foremost, like, great job retaining somebody for 4 years. That's like pretty unheard of for keeping on a painter, or some of the top that I've heard. The first thing I would ask on this is just like, why? Like, why and when did this start to happen? And just really start to understand from the painter's perspective, and try to see if there's like a timeline or like a specific event that happened, or something that, did I change something? And start to get like a more realistic view of it, versus just looking at this painter and maybe they're not producing as many hours, or they're not showing up. Is like, the first thing I want to do is just look at this really holistically. And I'm always going to look at myself first, and the things that I've done in the business that might have led to a change in this behavior, especially for somebody that's worked for 4 years. That'd be the first way that I'd approach it. And then once I do that, then the next thing I'm going to do is take the painter out for like a beer or a coffee, right? Before or after work, right? And I'm just going to get super real with them. So I know you said you don't like having these difficult conversations, but these conversations don't need to be difficult, right? Because if you're seeing that somebody's not performing at the level that you expect, and they're obviously not showing up in the way that they want to either, that there's likely like misalignment that's going on, right? And so if you can just get real with someone and just forget, there's like an art of detachment, right? So detaching the painters worked for you for 4 years, detaching yourself from whether they stay with you or not. Like, don't worry about that for that conversation. And that can free you up to actually have the appropriate conversation to move yourself, your life, their life in the right direction of where you guys want to go. So I would just say, if it was Gavin, if you were the struggling painter, it would sound something like, hey, Gav, I just want to, hey, thanks for grabbing a beer with me. Like, I really, really appreciate it. And build the rapport, just have a conversation, and just be like, hey, look, like I've been noticing some things in the business, and in terms of performance, and just want to have a real conversation with you. Oh, and by the way, Gavin, I'm not great at having these conversations. So if I sound awkward or whatnot, it's just because it's uncomfortable, and I really do want to help you in this situation. Mm-hmm. So that's how I'd approach a situation. If you think that you're not good at having these conversations, is just call that out for the person. So you can say, hey, if I like fumble my words and stuff, just know that these conversations actually make me a little bit uncomfortable, and that's why. And then it kind of de-arms the conversation, right? And then the next thing I would say is just, it's like, what, basically to start super vague, like what's going on, right? Like what's been going on? Like, I've noticed, over the last 3 months, like XYZ has specifically happened. And the big part here is I don't want to make Gavin wrong, right? I'm not like blaming Gavin. I'm not saying like, because then immediately what's going to happen, Gav, if I start doing that, if I start making you wrong,
I'm going to get defensive. My guard's up. I'm not going to open up.
100%. Yeah. And I'm not going to get the real answers, right? So I'm just, hey, I just want to get really curious. a lot of the theme of this podcast has been
I was
getting
just about to
curious,
say,
right?
there's a
Yeah.
theme here when it
Yeah,
comes to
yeah.
like sales, leadership is curious, asking questions,
Yeah. So then I would just get really curious, and that's going to open up the conversation in a way that you guys can actually have a real conversation and get to the root issue, right? Because, what you're describing of like low performance is effectively a symptom, right? So you see a symptom. It's your job as a leader and the owner of the company to be a leader that can help people get like to the root. If you can get to the root instead of just treating symptoms all the time, then you can actually lead your people and empower them in a way that will propel them and ultimately your business and everybody's life way further forward faster. But that's I think this conversation could go on for a while on that, but that would be kind of the first premise of that. What do you have to add on that one?
Yeah, so I want to just point out, so like what we're kind of going through is, if you want to explore into this more and search up a topic, it's situational leadership, right? So understanding the situation first, right? Like for example, if I just went like, oh, this guy's he hasn't been paying on budget for 3 weeks, I'm going to come down hard on him. That's like, he needs a kick in the ass. But in reality, or let's say 3 months, but in reality, maybe his wife just got diagnosed with cancer and is having treatment, right? Like, if you come in hot and this guy's already just like he's doing the best he can to show up, and you that is not what you want to be doing. You're having the opposite effect. But if you discover that in conversation, then you can, now the root cause. You can put together a plan, right, and potentially lock in an extremely loyal employee for long term. By putting together some plan that solves their current problem. Like, man, like, sounds like you need to spend some time with your wife. Like, do you want to block off some time and just move to part-time, or do you need certain days and times a week for appointments or stuff like that, right? Like, or you might discover that they're feeling underappreciated, or they're feeling like they're in a dead-end job. That's a super common one, especially for high performers. Oh, I've been working for 4 years. I've kind of capped out. I'm already a crew lead. Like, this is the best I'm going to be. Why try? Oh, that's a devastating way to lose a high performer. And that's why most high performers leave businesses, is because they're feeling like they're in a dead end job. So if you discover that, then you just be like, oh, okay, so you want more. I'm overloaded with stuff. I can give you more. Let's put together a plan. And then boom, all of a sudden this person's re-engaged. You put together a clear plan for them to move to maybe a production manager role, or maybe they're training people, right? Maybe they want to help people and they're just feeling unfulfilled in their job.
That that might be one of the best things I've ever heard you say, actually, is that like you said a lot of great things.
Yeah.
If people really listen to what you said there, though, like that, you look at underperformance and like your gut instinct is like, oh, I just need to let this person go. But really the reason why their performance has been lacking is because they don't see themselves having a future, right, with them. And one thing that Mike and I always talk about, right, we say, when we think about Painter Growth, right, in the vision and how like the vision of Painter Growth has been expanding, we keep asking the question is, how big does the vision of Painter Growth need to be so other people's visions and goals and dreams can fit within it? And it has to, and it keeps expanding the deeper and the more we have conversations, where we have a lot of amazing, yourself included, like 7+ figure business owners that either still have the business or they've sold the business, that I'm like, Mike and I talk about this, I'm like, man, we got to keep having coaches at the level that we do within Painter Growth. It's like the vision has got to keep expanding, even greater, because these people are very, very high performing, and there's got to be a game plan for development in all those ways, right?
Totally. Yeah.
I really, really love what you're saying. And I'm curious how many people out there right now, you're just not, you could get so much more out of your existing team or painters or subcontractors. One thing I did with one of my subcontractors, he came on in the first year, he's running one crew, right? And he was great. Crushing it, right? That winter we had a conversation. I said, hey, tell me what's important to you. Like, what do you want to do? And he told me that his vision one day was to run like, his own business, like similar to the one that I created. And instead of being afraid of that and being scared of it, I said, that's great. Like, what can we do next year to help you get there? And he's like, well, I'd love to learn how to run more than one crew. I said, awesome. Like, what if we ran 2 crews next year? Right. And that's what we set up. And he ran 2 crews, and he eventually ended up running 3 crews. He stayed with me for 3 years, right? Where he was producing like 300 to 500K a year for me because I created that opportunity. And now this gentleman, he ended up moving provinces, and stuff shifted with the business. And when he started his own business, he actually ended up joining Painter Growth. And I think in his first year, he's going to do over 600K, and he's on track. And then his goal is to do $1 million next year. So, and that's awesome. Like that's like that. Isn't that like such a cool story where you can create that vision greater, understand their needs, don't be afraid of it, lean into it, and then for me to see one of my subcontractors going to do that now is one of the most rewarding things in the world. Like that's amazing.
That's super cool.
Right.
I also want to point out that you can lead and develop subcontractors. They don't have to be employees, right? Like if you find an awesome subcontractor who's like 90% there and could just use a little bit of refinement, like work with them, right?
Yeah. And now, and just tying this back into the question, if you get, when you have that conversation, and like what you said, understanding their situation and where they're at, because at the end of the day, something that is just really important to remember is, number one, nobody has it figured out, including us, right? Like everyone's figuring out one day at a time. But the other thing too is that whether it's a painter, and this sounds so obvious when I say it out loud, but it's just really good to remember, whether it's a painter, whether it's a subcontractor, whether it's a salesperson, whether it's a marketer, at the end of the day, people are people.
Totally. We're humans.
And like humans, you always have shit on the go, right? Everyone always has shit on the go. And so if you could actually relate on that level to people and understand that, yeah, of course, maybe they're a painter for you today, but they're a human and they probably have things going on in their life, and just, connect with people that way, then it's going to make you such a better leader and honestly a better person in life too. Okay, let's
just quickly wrap this one up with one last point here is, obviously this is we're talking about people like, working with people, leadership, like getting them back on track. I do want to point out there is a time and place where you need to have that line drawn in the sand.
Yes.
Of performance needs to get up there. You can't just let people get away with it. And you do need to set very high standards and upkeep them. Is your responsibility as the leader to make sure that everyone's hitting those, and any lapses in performance are addressed quickly. But consistent lapses, no matter the situation, is not acceptable. Right? Just because someone's having a hard time outside of work, do what you can, but it can't continue to affect the business. Right? People can't put their problems on you.
Yes.
And if you let them, they will constantly. And you're going to be dealing with all of these other people's problems. So make sure you have that line very clearly defined. And that can be part of the same conversation of still setting expectations. Like, look, man, like I totally understand where you're at. Like, I want to work with you because we can't keep having this. Like if this continues, I can't have you on the team because it's impacting the rest of the team, their morale. It's impacting our goals and just the level of client experience. Right?
Yeah,
do you see that?
I think that's such a good point, and I'm so glad that you brought that around there, because at the end of the day, it's like you're running a business and everything's got to function appropriately. And the easiest way to do that too is actually, like, on the contract that you have with them, is to have those accountabilities and those numbers written down so that it doesn't feel subjective. Like it's very objective, that this role entails doing X, right? And this is the accountability. Here's the metric. And so that part of the conversation becomes very black and white. Whereas the other, I guess, softer side of the conversation is very much, you can kind of flow through that. But at the end of the day, those accountabilities are, and for all painters, subcontractors, marketers, salespeople in your business, those do have to be very, black and white, in my opinion.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because those people will drag down the rest of your team.
Yes.
So if you've given them multiple chances and they keep not stepping up, exit them quickly.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because also high performers love being around high performers.
Oh yeah.
Right. And if I've actually had awesome painters quit because I had them with people that were underperforming.
Yeah.
And
pair your A players with A players.
Right. Okay. So there, you know what did you say? There's nothing worse than losing a high performer because you didn't give them an opportunity. There's also nothing worse than losing a high performer because you stuck them with low performing people.
Totally, right? Because
Right.
high performers have options. That's the thing. So if,
Yeah.
if you have a few high performers and a bunch of, it's going to sound bad, but duds, right? Like people who are just existing in your business doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
High performers know they've got options. They're going to leave very quickly. You're going to be left with a team of duds, and you're going to be they're going to be such an anchor to your business, and you won't grow. So,
100%. All right, we're getting close on time here, so I do have a question though, just real quick, because we're going into this one of the group calls the other day. It's not really a quick question, but maybe it can be. Let's make it quick. You were going to start a painting company today, knowing everything that you know now. Right? What are your first 3 moves? Let's go through first 3 moves.
I mean,
putting you on the spot because we didn't prepare anything here.
Yeah, totally. So like other than like the obvious, like we're not going to count this as one of my 3 moves, but like obviously there's like get your branding set up, know your like I already know like my target market and stuff like that's inbred, like ingrained in me. So if you don't know that would be step number 1. First step is I would put together a plan and hire people to just dominate neighborhood marketing tactics. Right. Multiple people, just it is a volume game, like in terms of brand impressions. So I'll just get the marketing cranking, and I don't want that taking a ton of my time. So I'm going to hire people to do that. Probably 1 person to manage it. And I'm
going to throw one curveball in this question. You have less than $100 of startup capital.
Okay.
Would you still do the same thing?
Yeah, I'd hire someone basically on the results based. I pay them on results. My brain's not working here. And just have a conversation with them. Like, look, I'm super tight on cash. This is the vision. Go out there, generate leads for me, and as I book them, I will give you like a big bonus. So it's worth it for you. So it's low risk, no salary, like that type of thing. You're just paying straight for results because I know I can sell paint jobs. Yeah. Right. Minimum, I'm selling 1/3 of paint jobs. Like I hope I do better than that. I'm a little rusty, but I know I can sell 1/3. So if he sends me 3 quotes, I can book one, collect a 20% deposit, and pay him for all of those leads. Right. Scale that up. Sell. Have a start date, like an operational start date of when production starts, and just smash bookings. Pre-book it all. Start recruiting 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time and just get those people on standby. And then it turns into switches to production. Yeah. I would probably hire a production manager again as quickly as possible, as I don't like dealing with production. I can do it very well. But it drains me. So I would probably hire a production manager who is an absolute hustler and wants to build a business. And again, pay them, a percentage of what's produced. They can paint it first. They're one of the painters. They got to earn their stripes in the business with like a really high upside potential. Yeah,
I love it. And those are like, I would say those are like the really 3 big chess moves from like a really, really high up level, which I would follow verbatim the same thing. But I'll go a little bit. I'll take my 3 as like a little bit more granular in the beginning, just so people have different context. But like I said, that we've already decided the areas that we're going to target, so that's there. But yeah, the first thing that I would do, like I said, is I would get at least 1 person that's going to help me be super targeted, and we would just go what I call like whale hunting, like go hunt big whale jobs, and I would teach them that method right off the hop, right? And then and I would have them set up so that in the first month I'd have a conversation with them where I can have a 30-day window until their first payment, because I know that within that time frame, painting has a short enough sales cycle that, like you said, I'm going to book the deposit, I'm going to collect that 20%, and I know that I can use up to half of that deposit to fund my marketing, because I know my marketing is going to be about 10% total, right? So that's where I'm going to avoid getting into trouble of spending too much of the deposit, but I know that I actually want to reinvest about half of that 20% deposit, right? That's how I'm going to use that capital. And then I'll do the same. Okay, so that's move one, right, is finding that person, and then I would be out in the field with them like every day in the beginning,
getting them
right?
dialed.
So I'm out there like probably I would do 3 hours a day consistently, like 15 hours a week. That would be like my probably 4:30 to 7:30, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I would do all the quotes on Fridays and Saturday, where I just stack them back to back to back, right? And then I'm knocking on doors in between those estimates, right? To just introduce myself. And the big part of that is just introduce myself and say, hey, this is my name. I'm potentially new to the area. I live there with my family. And oh, by the way, I have a painting company. Just wondering if you guys were thinking of getting any painting done. So that'd be we could call those two moves, right? I'm going to set up my schedule appropriately so that I'm focused on the right activities. And then I'm going to hire that one person and just have a conversation and make sure that it's in alignment, or, take the time to do that. And then the third thing that I would do, knowing this now, is I would find the guy that knows everyone.
I was just thinking that of like that's what I missed is like I know so many incredible like entrepreneurs and friends and like I didn't even think about leveraging my network, but that's where my mind goes now.
Yeah, totally. And even that, like, so we just we just got to Mexico, right? And like we're setting up in this area, and we got to this really nice spot, and we didn't know anybody coming here, right? And my wife and I were chatting, and I'm like, we're loving this place. It's awesome. And we need to find the guy that like knows everyone, right? Like there's always a guy, right? And so we're big golfers. So we got connected to this golf chat. There's 70 people in there. Now the guy that kind of orchestrates all the golf, he reached out to me because I got into that chat by just being on the putting green every morning and chatting with the people. We started having conversations. He invited me over to his place, and my wife and I and our son, we went over there, chatted with him. And now, dude, he has connected us with everybody that knows everybody here. And I'm like, it just made me think, I'm like, why didn't I do this way more in my own painting company, which is who's the guy in that local, little community that is the guy that knows everybody. And you just be a really, really, really good, kind person and just tell, people what you do and whatnot. And it's crazy how much, people are like willing to help when you do that. So that'd be my third big move if I was, starting all over again, is just find the guy or the girl, find the guy or the girl that is just connected to everybody and be awesome. Just be a great person and befriend them. And I think you would get so much business from that alone. So it's a fun question to think about because, there's so many mistakes and so many things that we've done. And both of us have started multiple painting companies now. And, if ever to do it again, which I don't foresee that, but it is fun to think about that proposition and just knowing everything now. So if you're listening out there today, I think that those moves, regardless if you're starting out or not, or you have a super established company, if you're not maximizing those things that we just talked about, that's some super low hanging fruit. And easy places to find those people is like golf courses, right? Tennis clubs, those types of things. And there's always a person.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Sweet.
Well, this was neither of us said paint as hard as possible. I'm going to paint as many walls as possible to build this business.
Yeah. That's so funny, man. This was super, super fun. Hopefully everyone got a bunch of value, guys. Thank you so much for sending the letters. If you guys have any other specific questions about your business, please send us letters. This is super fun for us to do. Hopefully you guys got a ton of value and make some big moves in your business. And thanks for listening, and come hang out sometime. Come check out our school group. We're always in there a lot. It's a super easy way to get involved in painting growth. And then eventually, if it's right for you, come join the Blueprint program and let's build your business and scale to 7 figures and beyond. We'd love to see you guys in there.
Absolutely. We just actually I had an initial coaching call today with a client who's just listened to all the Brush Busters. He's like, "Hey, love it. I've listened to all the episodes. Like I came for the real thing." And we used Jam for a little bit, put together a solid plan, and now he's in the ecosystem, loving it. So
it's fantastic. So good. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Gavin.
See you here.